What could I hope
Well,
to
good morning,
give
Grace Hill Church.
when
So glad you
all
could
I've
join us for
known
worship. And
is stubbornness and ways to make my plan. Rise above the good of this. How could I give of mine? Surrender this to let you know how much I do care. With all my love, I swear that I will. Signs, did what's right. You memorized the stories in that book. Could it prepare you for all you mistook? Could this love ever be all the things the world declared and made it out to be? I thank God the plan runs so deep. Truth you hold to bring us through the night. I'm dreaming again of what you said. I wanna bring you back there. You feel it again, the pain won't quit. How long till we realize we can't do this right? We long for the truth you hold to bring us through the night. How long till we realize we can't do this right? We long for the truth you hold to bring us through the night. I'm dreaming again of what you said. I wanna bring you back there. You feel it again, the pain won't quit. Even we can't save this. western colored skies. When I get a sense of what is right, I've climbed the mountain, felt its fire. It's a righteous fuel for this desire. Look to the earth and you will see the truth of life and all it sees. Storm rolls across.
All right. Hey, Grace Hill Church and other friends tuning in. Hope you guys are doing well. Sorry, we're a little late on, but you know what? It's Monday.
Slow Monday.
It's a Monday.
We're all still waking up.
So, and everybody else just at home. They got nothing else to do. Actually, I'm sure
ouch.
everybody
Ouch.
is
Yeah, that's not
very busy. Anyway, hey, hope everyone is doing well. My name's Alan. This is Nick. We both serve as pastors at Grace Hill Church, and every Monday at noon-ish, we jump on our Facebook Live and our YouTube channel to do a Q&A session. And we started to do this just to answer questions that people might receive from the sermon, that we might receive from the sermon preached on Sunday morning, so yesterday, and sometimes random other questions that people want to
discuss,
submit.
Yeah.
So very good, interesting topics, some good questions that we've received.
On authority.
So let me do this real quick. Let me just give a quick recap of yesterday. Good. So we've been in this sermon series called Reconsider, where our hope is to answer some questions or to address some assumptions that people might have about church or faith or Jesus that have really caused them to not consider Jesus.
Yeah.
And try to address those head on and just say, hey, these are good, valid, right questions for people to be asking. And I think maybe sometimes these particular questions are ones that, the church wants to avoid or they can just be difficult.
Yeah,
they're tough. So here's what we tackled yesterday, which was church leadership and the abuse of authority. And just said that there might be a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there who've really been hurt.
Oh yeah, very common.
By the church, or they know somebody that's been hurt by the church, or they've seen, high-profile public ways in which people fallen, abuse their authority, and it's true that faith leaders all the time of all religions abuse their authority to control people, to manipulate people. So we wanted to address that head on. And so I preached from Matthew chapter 23. And in Matthew 23, Jesus has some very strong words of rebuke.
For the Pharisees.
For, the religious leaders in Jerusalem when he was here as a man. And so from Jesus's words, I gave 5 characteristics of a leader that represents Jesus. And let me see if I can remember the 5 points of my own sermon.
On the spot.
Right here.
It's really tough.
It really is.
Next day, it's like,
So the 5 characteristics of someone, a leader that reflects Jesus. So the first characteristic of a leader that reflects Jesus
Don't look to me to help you. It was a good sermon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Look, I don't know if I'm going to get them in order, but I'll tell you this.
Yeah,
a leader that represents Jesus is a leader that's not above criticism.
Yep.
A leader that represents Jesus is a leader that knows they're going to have blind spots.
Yep.
A leader that represents Jesus is a leader that doesn't see themselves as different than the people that they lead, right? They don't see themselves as a different class.
Another one was
person.
like they're not like essential for the ministry, maybe that wasn't a point.
That was a point I made within a point.
See, I know the sub points.
That's right.
Man, that is
a leader that represents Jesus is a leader that they don't have special knowledge, right? They're not like this special Christian and God downloads special knowledge to them. No, we all have access to the scriptures. And then a leader that represents Jesus is a leader that knows that there cannot be holiness without love. Like we have to reflect the character of Jesus even when we're obeying particular commands or
noisy
laws.
gong or
Right.
clanging cymbal.
So if you took all of those characteristics and you kind of distill them into one, what you really see is a leader that represents Jesus is a leader who's humble, who doesn't need to be the smartest person in the room. They don't need everyone to address them with certain titles and give them certain places of honor. They're a leader who's secure in who they are in Christ, and they don't look to their leadership to be the thing that secures them. Right? When you look to your leadership to be the thing that secures you, you're actually an insecure leader.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For
Validate,
you
yeah,
and laud you and
Yeah.
all of these things. So I really, if you missed the sermon,
Yeah, go check it out.
I really do encourage you. It's on our podcast, on our website, and
important sermon.
scroll down in our YouTube channel or Facebook Live, and you'll find the replay of it from yesterday. So, speaking of church leadership and the abuse of authority, got kind of two big questions that we're gonna try to tackle today. So the first one, let's talk about this. When I was teaching on how a leader that represents Jesus is one who is not above criticism, one of the points that I made is that leaders, and by the way, we're talking about all leaders. So yes, we are talking about pastors like you and myself, so church leaders, but any leader who's a Christian. So if you're a parent, you're a leader, right? If you lead if you have employees who report to you at your work, you're a leader. If you lead in an organization, or something like that, So if people are looking to you for leadership, we're talking about all of that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I made the point of is especially within the context of church leaders like you and myself, that there needs to be internal accountability.
Yeah.
Internal accountability, meaning that there are those inside the organization that can provide critical feedback, constructive criticism, and provide accountability, that there's transparency inside the organization. And the reason why I made this specific point is because lately it's been really popular for many leaders to say, well, I can't have internal accountability because no one inside the organization really understands what I go through. So therefore, I must have external accountability from a group of people that I control, and I'm their only kind of point of contact.
Which is an extremely popular view of church leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's all over the place.
Yeah, because especially in America today, you have a lot of churches where you have a lead pastor or a senior pastor kind of on top of the organizational chart. Yeah. And there's nobody else inside the organization that they report to or are accountable to. Yeah. And so they can create these external boards or whatever to provide that. And of course, that I think can be very helpful. But I was trying to make the point that internal accountability is so important because
they see you on the ground, right?
It's the people that are closest to you. It's the people that see you day in and day out. They see you in your best moments so they can encourage you. They see you in your worst moments. Anyway, here's the question. The question is, what does that look like for the leaders, you and me, of
Grace Hill
Church and our other elders? What does internal accountability look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, one of the things when we planted Grace Hill was we wanted to make sure that we had people who could be that internal source of accountability for us, for particularly you and me as the staff pastors.
Yeah.
And so I would say we spoke to this a little bit a week or two ago in terms of just accountability, but yeah, we have an elder board. So there's 4 of us currently on that. So that's been, I mean, that is the biggest kind of things that causes us to pump the brakes or do whatever we need to do, make sure we're staying on track. I would say in addition to that, we have a few outside brothers and people that we do kind of regularly communicate with and in various capacities. I know you connect a lot with John every week from McGowan from RCC, which is great, and others. So that's cool. The Summit Church. Again, those are outside though. Internally, man, I feel like we're also just very connected to our deacons and just other high-level leadership. So I would say for us, the most important one is certainly the elder board.
Yeah, so I think you could divide this question or the answer to the question into 2 categories. that we have kind of, I don't know a relational sense of internal accountability, and then I want to say a structural sense of internal accountability. So let me speak to the structural first, because I think the relational is actually the more important one. It's the more effective, but I think you have to have the structural sense too. So the structural sense is that the way that our church is governed,
our polity.
Yeah, our polity is that there is no one person at the top of the organization. So there's no one inside of our organization that does not have someone they report to.
Yeah.
And get a performance review.
And technically our polity or our church structure on paper is elder-led, congregationally ruled.
Right.
And so the elders, lead forward the church in different things, and yet the congregation has the ability through voting, through our process we have in place to approve, strike down, reject something.
So based on how our church is governed, like I have zero as I guess the lead pastor of the church, right? I have zero ability to spend money without any every dollar that I would spend,
it goes to two different people.
Yeah,
the transactions.
A lot of people are going to see that, right? So I have no authority to be like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. No, we have a budget that the congregation approves, that the elders comb through with a fine-tooth comb.
We have finance. A couple people over finance right now.
Right, we have.
It's not us.
So there's no kind of sense, even structurally, of someone has so much power within themselves that they can do things without other people seeing what's going on. Does that make sense?
And I think what's encouraging to me about that is we know a lot of church plants out there who it is maybe just for whatever reason, good or bad, it's a lone person, a lone guy.
Oh yeah.
And he does everything, right?
Yeah.
Like he can spend money kind of as he wants and needs to, and most of the guys we know that we love and
trust. A lot of
them,
church planners do that by necessity.
Yeah,
it's just kind of
they don't have another option.
We were blessed to be able to start with a structure where we had more people involved.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you this: being in ministry for over 10 years now, and seeing different church structures and involved in different churches, that one of the things I tell Kim all the time is how much I love our elders. Because I just feel so safe with you guys. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I can be myself. I can lead. I can have crazy ideas. I can, and it's not all on my shoulders, right? There's a board of people who can moderate that, can encourage, can say, oh, let's wait on that. You know what I mean? Sure. I don't. All of the weight's not on just me or another person, and that actually just lets me be more of myself, to be honest. And I love that structural sense of accountability, but that's not the most important kind. The most important kind is the relational sense.
Yeah, speak to
where do we have relationships with each other within the church that are built on trust, and where if we speak into each other's lives, we hear it, we take it seriously.
Yeah.
We don't shrug it off like, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I think of, I just so cherish even the relationships that I feel like I have, not just with each of the elders, but also their wives and their families. And that sense of relational trust. You know what I mean? Like I think of my wife, Kim, and if anything was going on with me that she has seen, I feel like she has the friendship, the relationship, and the trust built with you guys, the rest of the elders, that she would be comfortable to go to you guys.
Sure.
And so it's that relationship that I think is so important, that there's not this sense of, hey, I'm above, way above, you being able to, I don't know. I mean, you speak to relational.
Man, that's a great point. Cause that's what you want, right? You don't want just the structure, the paradigm. You want like the actual practice of the accountability and the trust and the give and take and all that. Yeah. And I can just think through like most of our high level leaders. There's been a few times where you and I or somebody else or to us even has spoken a word of truth that might be, maybe not like super comfortable.
Sure.
And it's been, for the most part, I mean, gosh, greatly received.
Yeah.
And so I'm just even as you mentioned, I'm just thinking through a few people and scenarios, and I'm just thankful for that.
Absolutely. And so I think that's what's important. But the structure piece there is kind of having that church structure where there really is no person organizationally speaking who kind of can be above accountability type of a thing. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Hey, so here's the next question. This is a little bit weightier. Let's say you're an employee and you have a boss who's a terrible leader, maybe even an abusive
Christian
leader.
organization or just
No,
general?
Just general. General.
Okay.
Or you are under a leader who is prideful. You're under a leader who does think they're the smartest person in the room. You're under a leader who has really thin skin or is very insecure, and so bringing up a different idea might be tricky.
Yeah.
They're definitely above criticism. There's no way of kind of
You have to tiptoe.
feedback that flows up in an organization. And, some people are just put in places of leadership and they're terrible leaders, but they're there and you have to report to them. What advice would we give to those people working in those situations, or any situation where you have someone above you, but it's a very unhealthy situation? So let's talk to that first, and then I actually want to get to kids who might have parents who are like that too. What do we do with that?
Yeah, it's a great,
So
thoughts? I think for me, just to start us, you have to approach this, of course, as a Christian, right? Because that's your highest calling. That's your identity. And so for me, I just know that, now I've worked in church world for the last 10 plus years, so take this with a grain of salt. But for me, I can't, and I hear this when I speak to Christian men and women who are in the workplace doing their thing. But you have to approach the situation, so if you have a difficult boss, as I would think, man, I'm here as a Christian to see reconciliation in my workplace and in my boss's life. Like, of course, we got to make our bottom line as a business. That's important. But really, truly, the main reason I'm here on this earth, on this planet, is to live and to share the gospel. Right? That's why we're here right now.
Serve Christ.
Yeah. And so that's got to be your starting point when you think about how do I respond and how do I think rightly about this situation. How do I love them? And so, man, my encouragement would be to first just get on your knees and start praying about that. Like, gosh, you have to go to the Lord first and foremost and ask him to speak and to use you through this, because it could be an opportunity to, I think we should see things as opportunities. There's kind of difficulties. So I think it's prayer. I think it's soliciting the help and the encouragement of other brothers and sisters in Christ in your church. So that's like kind of the pre-work, but when you're actually in the office with the person, man, I feel like when I've been in difficult situations, whether it's a church situation or even just my family, or just I'm checking out at the grocery store. It doesn't matter where, people are all the same, right? Human nature is the same. And as I am quick to just love and to serve and to what we've been talking about, just exude as best I can and emulate Christ, that just is so disarming that it's going to create opportunities with that potentially difficult boss, right? If you go above and beyond to serve your boss, even though maybe he or she, or if they're difficult or whatever, I don't care who you are, it's going to earn some somewhat of an ear for your boss to listen to you or to hear you.
Yeah.
Or they're going to notice it, right? Because if they're coming from a place of just, they're difficult, maybe they're a jerk, they're angry. If you're now kind of reflecting through servanthood the opposite of those ideals that they are reflecting, it's going to catch their eye, right? It's just going to.
Yeah.
And they're going to wonder about it. And so I think eventually, as we're praying and seeking the Lord through doing that, I think the Lord will use it. I think he'll use it to catch people's attention. And even if not to necessarily change the boss, but to change somebody else who's seeing the way the boss is acting and seeing you love and serve them through their difficulty, praise God for that.
Sure.
I mean, that's what we're going after. So.
Yeah, it reminds me of 1 Peter 2, where Peter, he's writing a letter to a bunch of churches that are really in heavy persecution in the Roman Empire under Emperor Nero, who was just ravaging the Christians. I mean, just violently
murdering,
persecuting them.
Yeah.
And, Paul says this, chapter 2, starting verse 11, he says, "Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to Abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. So there's a lot of passions of the flesh. One of them might be gossip. One of them might be murmuring. One of them might be complaining about the situation in ways that are unhelpful. There's the difference
and that's
between...
so tempting in the situation that we're talking about.
Yeah. Verse 12, keep your conduct among the Gentiles, sub in there unbelievers.
Yeah.
Keep your conduct among the unbelievers honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation when he returns.
Yeah.
Look at this. Verse 13, be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it to be the emperor, that would be Nero.
Yep. Killing Christians.
Who's impaling them on sticks and lighting them on fire.
Exactly. Yes.
As supreme, or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God,
honor the king,
honor the emperor.
Emperor.
Now this is tough. This is tough. But what Peter is saying here is you have to honor the leader above you.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I think what that means is everything what you just said is keep your conduct to that leader honorable, give them the respect that their position is due. Keep your conduct in front of everybody else. Don't be the person that's complaining at the water cooler and bashing the boss and slandering and this and that. Keep your, I like that word, honorable. Yeah. Be honorable in everything that you do. But let me throw a kicker in here, because what about, though, does this mean that you don't confront injustice?
Yeah.
Does this mean that if your boss is doing something that is hurtful to others, is abusive, if this means that you're in a relationship with somebody who's being abusive, does this mean if you have a parent who's being abusive that you just keep your conduct honorable and not confront the injustice?
Yeah.
So where's the line?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so difficult, because you can, I would say this, you can address a situation while still honoring the person as an image bearer, which they are, right? You're the jerk boss is an image bearer. And so how do you pursue the situation in a way that honors them? This is what I love about the Bible, is it doesn't give us, especially the New Testament, where I think there's freedom in the new covenant because of Christ, it doesn't give these hard line, Appendix 237, whatever, here's exactly what you do in this specific situation. It doesn't give us that. Instead, it gives us loose principles, knowing that we as Christians, having the Holy Spirit dwelling within us, will be guided by God's Spirit, so that we can kind of generally know what to do, and we seek, but also that we have to seek God in those situations to glean and to gain wisdom from Him on how we should respond. And so, yes, I think we should pursue justice. Dietrich Bonhoeffer is a great example of this with the Nazi regime.
Well, and here's to speak into this. So go into what Paul says in Romans 12. Paul gives us some really, in going into Romans 13, Paul gives us some very important advice here, in commands here in Scripture, where Paul says this, starting in verse 14, Romans 12, verse 14, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them.
Yeah.
Treat them honorably. I love what you just said. Treat them as an image bearer. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Check your heart when you're dealing with people over you who are abusive or who are not good leaders. Never be wise in your own sight. Don't become the person that you're criticizing, right? You're not the smartest person in the room either, even if your boss acts like it, right? So just associate with the lowly, right? Repay no one evil for evil.
Yeah.
But give thought to what is honorable in the sight of all. This word honorable keeps coming up.
Yeah.
If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. So God sees injustice.
Yeah.
To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. Serve. For by doing so, you'll heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
And the reason why Paul gives this, wait, where is that from?
Romans 12.
Yeah. Why he gives that instruction is to reconciliation is the goal, right? Right. There's a wrong, if there's an injustice. First, we want to try and reconcile the situation, but then at the same time, as much as it depends on us what the wording was, we also got to deal with the injustice too.
Right.
And
and Paul's going to, I think, get into that in Romans 13.
Yeah.
Because of the next verse. But I think just to what you were saying, like we treat others with honor and respect. We live peaceably with all.
Yeah.
Vengeance belongs to God. Right? He is going to take care of every injustice.
And it's an act of faith to trust that.
It is. But
yeah.
Romans 13, verse 1, next verse. Let every person, including the leader above you, be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. So Paul then does go into the role of governing authorities.
Yeah.
And so if you do have a leader who is being abusive, if you do have a leader who is committing injustice,
disqualify themselves from that role.
If you have a parent who is being abusive to you, you do have a right, and you ought to involve governing authorities and confront the injustice in such a way. But you can do that and live honorably.
Totally.
Right? And you can do that and not repay evil with evil.
Totally. And I would say governing authorities that are walking in accordance with the standard as much as you can.
Of course.
Of
course. And by and large, we live in a society that does, with certainly with exceptions.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So one of the questions posed to us is, what would you tell the kids or teens that have parents who are abusive, or parents who are just hard to live with, maybe not even in that place of abusive? And so the first thing I would say is, if they are abusive, then you need to involve others.
Yeah.
You need to,
because that's immediate danger.
Governing authorities. You need to get people involved. That involve your church family, along with the governing authorities, not instead of the governing authorities.
Yeah.
But what would you say to kids who have just hard, difficult parents,
and they're maybe not in like immediate danger in terms of what you were just? Yeah, right. Absolutely. It's tough, man.
So tough.
It is. I think I would encourage, obviously, any child, teenager, whatever, to everything we just said here already, to really strive to love and to serve. And gosh, I mean, if there's like a time in my own heart where my heart is like melted, if I'm frustrated or something, is when, actually the other day, this past weekend, I was frustrated about something. And Levi said, my son who's almost 3, he said, "Daddy, I'm going to pray for you." and he did. He said, "Lord, help Daddy not to be frustrated," or something to that effect. And of course, boom, all my defenses are down. I'm instantly softened.
Yeah.
And so that's me. That's not necessarily everybody, but for the most part.
But you're a good dad.
But
who gets frustrated every once in a while.
Sure. But I think but the whole point being that I think the Lord can use faithful, loving acts, dispositions to change people and to disarm people to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Man, I think I would encourage that child or kid to reach out to somebody who they do know and trust and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And to ask advice and to maybe even say, "Hey, man, my mom, my dad, whatever, they're really difficult. They're really hard to live with. What should I do? And should you say something?" And really think through just what it looks like to involve others.
For the situation where they're just in a situation where it's just hard, it's not necessarily abusive, but it's hard. Yeah. Especially if you're in our church family, it's just, I feel like I can only address it from that perspective. Like if you're in a community, trust, people in our church, like reach out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that's hard as a teenager or someone at that age, but like, again, we keep coming back to this over and over again. Like, you can't live the Christian life out alone.
Yes.
And so you need others to be able to help you process what you're going through, to help you process your experience, and to help you maybe confront and help you still live honorably, but at the same time deal with what's going on. Because the worst thing is sweeping stuff under the rug.
Yes, and Alan, that's what I was going to speak to. That is, I mean, here is a common lie that we believe in terms of just family units is, you know what, this is just for our family, what we're going through, and it needs to stay that way.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many things that can't be spoken into by others in love and dealt with within the context of loving, genuine, trusted community, be that church or family or other people. And so so I would say this to any kids listening, there's not many situations where you shouldn't involve others if there's a sin pattern, if there's something going on.
Mm-hmm.
You should feel that freedom, especially as Christians.
Yeah.
This is all done in community, all over. Right.
Yep. So. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's everything we talked about today. You know, like we lead this church in a community. There's not one person that leads this church, right? Speaking to the first question that we talked about today. If you're in a workplace and you're struggling with your boss, you know what I mean? Involve others that you trust, you know, to help you figure out how to navigate that. You might need someone to get some feelings out. Yeah. You might need someone to sit down and talk and vent a little bit and process. There is a difference between gossip and slander and processing your feelings because your end goal is you want to live honorably. You know what I mean? So do that.
Yeah.
You know, don't navigate these complex emotional situations alone. Like, just don't do that. And if you are in a situation where you have a boss and it's really hard, you can treat them honorably and confront. You can do those two things at the same time. Like, go to a boss and say, hey, the way this is being run or the way that we're doing things or the way that you treated our staff during that staff meeting is not okay. You can do that in an honorable way. You can also do that in a dishonorable way that will basically ruin any ability you have to speak into their life ever again.
Yeah.
And so I think I wanted to circle back to that point about living honorably. When we live honorably, we open up opportunities for us to actually say hard things because people trust our motive.
Yeah.
But slander, gossip, talking about people behind their back, going out for the happy hour and joining in on everyone making fun of the boss, you know, whatever it is, that's not living honorably.
No.
And you're going to torch any opportunity you might have for good influence in that.
Exactly. So let that be a reminder to all of us in terms of every aspect of our behavior, not just when the boss is being difficult, but may we walk and reflect Jesus in such a way so that we can earn the credibility with others to speak in as these kinds of situations arise.
And last thing, before we sign off, you might do all of that, and you might get fired, or it may never get better, and you might decide, you know what, this is not best for me to stay in this organization. Now I'm going to move on. I'm going to request a transfer. That that's okay. Like, you can, if you're in a situation that's hard and you want to live honorably, but you're realizing I need to get myself out of this situation, that's okay too. You have the freedom to do that, but do that prayerfully.
Yeah, and I think we would just say, really seek the Lord and seek how this could be an opportunity for maybe just living, sharing the gospel, whatever, before you pull the ripcord.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that was good conversation. And leadership is an important topic. And I know we have a lot of leaders in our church, leaders in the workplace, leaders in a lot of different spheres. And man, what influence we could have on the world if we led in such a way that represents Jesus. Yeah. So just really encourage you, if you are a leader, to go back through that sermon and really evaluate yourself, evaluate your leadership. Maybe if you have employees that report to you, or kids who are a little bit older, maybe take those 5 characteristics and ask the people under your leadership, what would you say about these 5 things when it comes to me? Be open to that feedback.
Be humbling.
Don't be above criticism. And your employees, your kids, whoever's under your leadership will trust you all the more for it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's awesome.
Great. hey, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah,
and
good time.
thanks guys for tuning in. Hey, I want to give you a couple of reminders. Wednesday night we have Philippians again, so 7:30
Part 3
right here on Facebook Live and the YouTube channel. So we'll continue studying Philippians. We are starting a new sermon series on Sunday called Healthy Soul. We're doing the Healthy Soul Challenge, where we're going to take the month of May to just evaluate our lifestyles, saying, hey, let's take this disruption that this pandemic is causing and really evaluate how we're living. Are we living with a healthy relationship with Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look like? And so I'm encouraging everybody to sign up for the Healthy Soul Challenge, because through the month of May, you're going to get guided meditations and some reflections and exercises.
And you just sent an email out for that.
Yep, I sent that to our members. And then if you go to gracehillchurch.com/healthysoul, you can see all of the information about that. So I want to continue to keep that in front of you as well. And then obviously we'll be all back together on Sunday morning on the live stream.
Right here. Yeah.
So love you guys. Have a great week. And we'll see you Wednesday night for the Philippians study.
See you guys.
What could I hope to give when all I've known is stubbornness and ways to make my plan? Rise above the good of this. How could I give of mine? Surrender this to let you know how much I do care. With all my love, I swear that I will. Signs, did what's right. You memorized the stories in that book. Could it prepare you for all you missed?